Welcome to another one of these YouTube get-rich-quick schemes. In this video, I'll share with you my never tried and never tested playbook on how to secure your much-deserved spot on Millionaire's Row in under 4 years. Okay, let's do this again. Welcome everyone to another one of my videos on how difficult and mundane entrepreneurship is, despite everyone making it sound like it is the second best thing since ketchup was invented. In this video, I will actually show you how making $4 million in 4 years is possible. Parts of this video are inspired by Paul Graham's essay, How to Make Wealth. Paul is one of the 4 founders behind Y Combinator, the accelerator that produced startups like Airbnb, DoorDash, and Dropbox. A quick disclaimer, what I share in this video is extreme, although not impossible. Think of starting a business like condensing your whole working life into a few years. Instead of working for 40 years in one of those work-life balance type environments, you pour your soul into building one thing for 4 years. What I mean by condensing is compressing the learning, the stress, the pain, the risk, and the money earned into 4 years as opposed to 40 years. That's what big risk, big reward should feel like. So if your salary is $100,000 per year, which would equal $4 million in 40 years, imagine making that in 4 years through your own business instead. So how exactly can you make $4 million? By working hard. I don't mean this lightly. I mean it in a way where you prioritize the business and sacrifice everything else during those 4 years. Here's Brian Chesky, the co-founder of Airbnb, talking about how hard he and his co-founder worked.
We basically decided for 3 months, Nate would move from Boston to San Francisco, and we'd wake up at 8 o'clock. We'd go to bed at midnight, 7 days a week, and we work from 8 to midnight every single day. And 7 days a week, we get full night's sleep, but that was it. And then we would, in that dedication for 3 to 4 months, created this real serious rhythm where we weren't doing other things. We were totally focused.
Airbnb is currently valued at over $100 billion, and Brian Chesky's net worth is $9.2 billion. Brian and his team would not have been able to build such an impressive business without putting in so much work. The thing that most people don't realize is that entrepreneurship is not magic. It doesn't bend reality or give you superpowers. It just represents the extreme on the wealth curve from those who have put in the time and effort and were willing to take risks. So can you fit 40 years of work into 4 years? Yes, and it's possible for 3 reasons. The first is the amount of time gained from the relative absence of bureaucracy. Because you'll be running a startup, you'll have no middle managers to deal with or communicate through, so you can and should be more efficient. The second reason this is possible is because you'll not waste a single minute of your working hours for 4 years straight. It's shocking how little workers actually work. The average worker in all career fields is productive for 60% or less on an average day. For office workers, that number is even less. I've looked at a lot of productivity research and found that the average office worker is productive for as little as 2 hours and 23 minutes in a given day. I'm going to use this figure for calculations in this video. Now you may think this doesn't apply to me, but after you add up the time it takes you to get into deep work and subtract coffee breaks, long lunch breaks, social media and phone breaks, and chatting with coworkers, among other things, you're left with an amazingly low total of actual work time. Assuming an 8-hour workday, office workers are generally unproductive for a staggering 5 hours and 37 minutes. So at the rate of 2.38 hours per day, you tally up a mere 22,848 productive hours over 40 years, while making full use of 8 hours per year for 40 years amounts to 76,800 hours. This is an astounding 53,952 hours lost in a working lifetime. As an entrepreneur making full use of your 8 hours daily, you're working 3 times more efficiently than you would as an employee. The third reason it's possible to squeeze 40 years worth of work into 4 years is that in addition to being more productive in your work hours, You'll also work more hours. A serious founder is expected to work 6 to 7 days a week, fully dedicated to their venture. So let's say you work an average of 14 hours per day, 7 days a week. That would amount to 98 hours per week. Over 4 years, that would equal 18,816 hours. That is 11,136 hours, more than a typical 40-hour work week over 4 years. But remember those 2.38 typical hours of productivity a day? Over 4 hours of a 5-day work week at this rate, we would get to only 2,285 hours of work. Compare 18,816 hours at full tilt versus 2,285 hours of normal work weeks with typical productivity, and you begin to see how you can get close to compressing 40 years into 4. This level of work is what differentiates very successful founders from average office workers. Now that you can work hard, how do you get to $4 million? Well, one easy way we can get there is through calculating your billable hours. If you sell your services hourly, multiply 18,816 hours by 0.85, since 15% of your time won't be billable. This comes out to about 16,000 hours total over 4 years. Then multiply those hours by $250 an hour, and that equals $4 million over the course of 4 years. Or with the revenue and the client base you've built, it might be very possible to exit, meaning sell the business at a $4 million asking price. In 2007 and 2008, my partners and I decided to expand our business model and build a software development company overseas, which meant building a sister company overseas while still growing our existing business here in the US. We made a 1-year commitment to this expansion. We used to work US hours during the day with a break for dinner and essential family responsibilities, and then we would work evening hours until midnight because we needed to overlap with our teams overseas. Sometimes we would travel overseas to be with the team, then flip the schedule to work nights there to overlap with US hours. It was a ton of work with very little time to catch a breath, but it all paid off at the end when we had built that unit into a 45% operation and sold it off as a separate company. I have had to do these bursts of intense work several times in my life, like in 2013 when we built our digital analytics company in Dubai, eSense. It's simple math. If somebody else is working 50 focused hours and you are working 100, you'll get twice as much done in a year as the other company. That's how businesses lose and win. Now, an important thought on work-life balance. If you want work-life balance, then you shouldn't start a business. They just don't go together. Getting a business off the ground that grows to 7 or 8 figures is a big feat that only an ambitious person can achieve. And that ambition cannot coexist with a comfortable work-life balance where you only work 40 hours and spend the rest of your time enjoying leisurely activities. The reason a business needs all the time and the learning is because as the owner, you need to do the work of every department: marketing, sales, operations, legal work, admin work, and everything else in between, in large part by yourself. That is not to mention the amount of effort simultaneously required to refine the offering and the business model.
And there's a friend of mine who says like starting a company is like staring into the abyss and eating glass. And there's some truth to that.
Now, this video is not intended as a formula to follow exactly, but rather as an illustration of how much more you can achieve if you put in more effort. I hope it also does its part to counter the absurdity of the get-rich-easy industry. In any case, if you're not willing or able to devote a great deal of time and effort to a new venture, be honest with yourself and stick with employment or a more modest business ambition. Now, if you have the ambition, but for some reason you can't start a business right now, watch this video here where I talk about times you should not start a business.